So here we are, it's the hottest day of the year so far. You know that hotter days are to come and you're at a decision point of how do I go about replacing my HVAC system? What are the costs? Because I'm seeing a lot of different things online and I'm not sure which way is up. So we're gonna give some context here. Here's what's happened in the last 48 months. We're gonna walk through it bullet by bullet, but basically here's what's happened for the price. 4 years ago, we were averaging a ticket somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000. And now average tickets are somewhere between $13,000 and $16,000, just depending on what system and tier and efficiency and size you go with. But essentially from the low end to the high end, in the last 4 years, we've doubled in price. And a lot of times I think the contractor catches the brunt end of this because guess what? We're in the home, we're the ones interfacing, we're the expert, and rightfully so. But I want to give some clarity and maybe a peek behind the curtain, if you will, as to what's happened to the pricing in the last 4 years and why the cost to replace your HVAC system has nearly doubled. As we've talked about in all my pricing videos, we have the normal breakdown. We've got 25% for labor and 30% for parts and all of that. You can see that pricing video down in the description. Go watch it. That'll give a little bit of context as to how we price, why we price, and what the actual margins are that we make. But beyond that, here's what we have. So first off, we're gonna kind of talk about the elephant in the room, the government. The government. So we've got the government, and the government has issued tariffs. And whenever we issue tariffs, because we're such a globalized economy, here's what we run into. There are tariffs on everything that goes into an air conditioner, by the way. Steel has a big tariff on it. Tin has a massive tariff on it. Copper has a massive tariff on it. And America doesn't produce a lot of these things. And the tariffs are ranging between 15 to 50%, depending on port of entry, country of origin, things like that. And the HVAC manufacturers, unfortunately, aren't just gonna eat that cost. They're gonna pass it to us as the contractor. Well, us as the contractor, we can't afford to eat that cost either. So what we have to do is it affects our pricing down the line. And so we are left with higher equipment costs than we had 4 years ago. Our costs have more than doubled. We've had 7 to 10 price increases pretty much per year over the last 4 years, and they have not come down at all. So tariffs are that first big swing, that haymaker in the room that's kind of punched us in the mouth as far as pricing is concerned. The second point here, we are still talking about the government. The government, through the AIM Act and the EPA, came out a couple years back and said, you know what, guys, refrigerant is a problem. And sure, it's a problem, but we're gonna make you have to retool the entire manufacturing line because we wanna go from R410A, which was a refrigerant that we were working on for the last 15 to 20 years-ish, to now we're gonna go to R454B or to R32. And those are where we're at now. So every manufacturer had to retool if they wanted to sell an air conditioner in the United States because of the AIM Act through the EPA. We had to retool, and I say we as an industry, but the manufacturers had to retool their entire production line to now account for different refrigerants. And different refrigerants might sound simple, but the reality is it runs at different pressures, different temperatures. We have to make different gaskets, different rubber fittings, make sure that the whole thing is capable of handling the temperatures and pressures that the new refrigerant runs at. It's not just as simple as plug in USB-A and then plug in USB-B. That doesn't exist in the HVAC world when it comes to refrigerant. Now the government's doing some weird stuff. They're talking about potentially rolling back the AIM Act. It's not going to happen because now all these manufacturers have spent billions of dollars retooling their entire manufacturing line to make sure that they're in compliance with the AIM Act and the A2L refrigerant changes. We can't go back. That ship has sailed, and thus the refrigerant change caused a price increase down the line as well on top of the tariffs. Also, we have to understand that manufacturers are under no obligation to roll back prices. They don't have to. They are constantly seeing what they can get out of us as contractors. We're constantly shifting, bringing all of our vendors in. And here's something, peek behind the curtain for you guys, is how Yarbrough & Sons operates. We're brand agnostic. We believe that 80% of an air conditioner's life is contingent on the day that it's installed, meaning the Yarbrough & Sons team controls 80% of the life of that air conditioner. Only 20% is controlled by the manufacturer. So every year we bring in all of our vendors, every one of them. Don't care. Bring them all in, bring them to the table and say, hey, we need the best price we can get. And a lot of times we're able to negotiate very good prices. But along with that, we still have to account for price increases along the way. But these manufacturers have not rolled back a single tariff increase, even though some of the tariffs have been paused. That is a problem because we are seeing a inflationary move being made by these manufacturers, basically just padding profit margin because they can, rather than sticking to what they said they would do, which is adding a tariff line item to the invoice and making that a removable line on the invoice. But let's be frank, they're never going to do that. They're going to absorb it any way they can because we can get more margin. So let's talk about the next point. We have labor shortages. With labor shortages, with a lot of AI stuff happening right now and a lot of job displacement occurring, there's a lot of optics on on the trades as a whole. If you're thinking about getting into the trades, see my video about why you should join the trades. But we have a labor shortage, and here's the reality. Here's the numbers behind it. For every 5 tradespeople that leave the industry, meaning they retire, there's only 1 to 1.5, depending on the trade, there to take their place. And it doesn't take a mathematist like me to figure out that that's not a very sustainable path. That is not even achieving replacement levels. Demand for HVAC, plumbing, electrical, garage door, and the like is continuing to climb at a rate of 7 to 8% per year. It is outpacing the growth of the US economy. Let that sink in. What that means is if we have fewer and fewer people entering the trades and an increasing demand for those trades, the cost of labor has to go up because we have to attract the best people. We have to be able to keep the best people. And the way to do that is money talks. You have to pay your people well. And that's what we do at Yarbrough & Sons. We pay our people well. We have an average tenure of over 7 years, but that doesn't come cheap. So labor is an increasing and ever-present pressure on the pricing structure of your HVAC system's replacement. So we have to look at labor on top of everything else because we have to make sure our team is paid. You have to make sure that your friendly neighborhood HVAC tech still has that job next week or next summer when your air conditioner inevitably takes a dive because we didn't decide to replace it this year. So now we've talked about the manufacturers, we've talked about kind of the internal pressure of the labor side of things, and now we're going to talk about the external pressures that are occurring to the industry. First, we're going to talk about scammers. And scammers are an ever-present headache. You've seen Facebook ads, I'm certain of it. You've seen the fly-by-night company who comes in, they put an ad out there saying they can replace the system for $8,000 or whatever it is, and then they come in, you sign the paperwork because guess what? You want a deal. And I get it, I want a deal too. But when you sign the paperwork for that $8,000 system, they come in, they install it, and like we talked about, 80% of that air conditioner's life is contingent on the day that it's installed. Well, now that fly-by-night company has cashed the check, they've installed the equipment, and I put air quotes around installed because if you've bought an air conditioner from these folks, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It works for 12 to 48 hours, takes a dive, phone number's disconnected, and you're screwed. Now you're left with an air conditioner that's not working and you're having to call a reputable company to come out and rectify the situation, costing you more money. I think it was Benjamin Franklin said the sweetness of low price wears off long before the bitterness of poor quality sets in. We have to make sure that whenever we're paying for something, we're paying for the whole thing. We want to make sure that we're getting what we're paying for. So if you're looking at Facebook ads or you're looking at Google ads, make sure that you find a reputable company that the thing that they're advertising isn't too good to be true, because too good to be true is often just that. It's a land of make-believe, sunshine and rainbows, and guess what? You want a cool house. You don't want a fairy tale. And if you want a cool house for longer than maybe the time it takes that person to drive to the bank and cash the check, you need to make sure that the company you choose is who they say they are, that they have their creds, that they can drop the licensing, that they can show you exactly who they are, and that they have a portfolio of work and a long-standing relationship with the communities in which they serve. Because that is how you ensure that you're not getting taken advantage of when it comes to the pricing side of things. Because all of us have to pay about the same amount for equipment. All of us, if you want to keep good people, have to pay about the same amount for good labor. The other thing that we have to control is the profit margin side of things. And the profit margin side of things matters a whole lot. And so if the price is substantially lower than any other quote you've gotten, pump the brakes, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. Because you have just now fallen victim to the deal. And the deal is they're not going to be around to service that warranty after it's installed. So make sure that you are not allowing a scammer into your house. Make sure that they are who they say they are, that they have the creds to back it up. And while we're on the topic of scammers, guys, let's talk about Angie's List and HomeAdvisor. Holy Moses. I can't stand these guys. And here's why I can't stand these guys. I know what you're probably thinking. If you're a homeowner, you're like, well, hey, they made it so easy for me to find out what the price was. And I saw on Facebook, I could get a new HVAC system for $3,800 to $7,400. Newsflash, that's what we pay for the equipment. If Angie's List can make that happen, matter of fact, if they can, good on them, because that is what we pay for the equipment most of the time. So we're talking about a discrepancy of more than 3 to 5x of the difference. Angie's List and HomeAdvisor is nothing more than a lead aggregator. They are charging contractors for leads. So you, the homeowner, your data is being sold. And if you've ever signed up for HomeAdvisor or Angie's List saying that you need a project done, I'm sure that there are 1,000 good use cases where people are like, oh, I hired somebody and it went great. Or you've been one of the thousands of Reddit posts that are out there that are like, I signed up and didn't know what I was getting, and now I'm getting calls 3 months later on a project that I had completed 48 hours after I signed it up. Guess what? You're getting calls because those contractors have been charged for those leads. The contractors paid. They're like, oh man, all right, we paid for this lead. Mrs. Johnson, we got her contact info. Now we got to go call her because we just paid sometimes upwards of $300 for this lead from Angie's List and HomeAdvisor. And guess what? Now ABC company in your hometown, because Miss Johnson filled it out, had to pay $300 for this lead. And guess what? That ad that Miss Johnson clicked on said that she could replace her air conditioner for less than $5,000. It's BS. The whole thing's red. I hate them. The FTC is actively suing these companies. You shouldn't do business with them because they are actively misleading both homeowners and contractors on what the outcomes are. They're only doing what's best for Angie's List and HomeAdvisor, and no one should be interacting and interfacing with these people. If you're curious of what it costs to get a replacement, find a company who has an online estimate tool like we do. You can scan the QR code here, or you can click the link down in the description and you can see what it would cost for Yarbrough & Sons to come out to your house to replace your home's most expensive appliance, your HVAC system, or your water heaters. But find a company who has that online pricing because that's really what you're after. If you click on an Angie's List ad that says you can replace it for X amount, I can't blame you at all because you're curious about the price. And when it comes to your wallet, your money, you want to make sure that you're making a good decision, both financially and for your home and the safety of your family. So I get it. We want to make sure that we're vetting the folks out who are coming into our house. But look for a company who has an online estimate tool like we do, and you can make sure that you're getting actual reliable data from the person who is coming to install it at your home, not some third-party vendor who takes your data and sells it to 15 different contractors. That's just not a winning solution for you, and it sounds like a headache for your voicemail because you're going to get a ton of phone calls, and guess what? You don't want 30 contractors calling you. I enjoy talking to contractors, and I don't want 30 contractors calling me. So that is where we're at with Angie's List and HomeAdvisor. We've talked about the pressures, right? We've talked about the government. We've talked about the regulation changes. We've talked about the scammer side of things. Now I want to talk about how to make sure you don't get taken advantage of. So technician comes to your house. Your air conditioner doesn't turn on. Tech comes in. They introduce themselves. They shake your hand. They've got the nice shiny white teeth, nice clean shirt. They're here to save the day. And guess what? You can't be sure if they're telling you the truth. I get it. There's a lot of like in your corner style videos where contractors have taken advantage of homeowners. And one of the ways that you as a homeowner can make sure that you aren't being taken advantage of is do a little bit of your research. Go outside your condenser, find your manufacturer. You can do a warranty lookup on your condenser. You go to the manufacturer's website, you do a warranty lookup, plug in that model and serial number, and it'll tell you if your equipment's under warranty. That right there is the starting point, because now you know if somebody comes into your house and says, hey, Miss Johnson, your compressor's dead. Well, we can see, because you can see, we as the homeowner can see if it's under warranty. If it's under warranty, that doesn't mean it's going to be free, but it means that that contractor is going to be able to get that compressor for free, and then you, the homeowner, will have to pay for the labor and the refrigerant and the expendable materials, meaning like the oxygen, acetylene, and all that stuff that goes into changing a compressor. But you want to make sure that the company is up to bar, and you can do a little bit of research on your own to make sure that you're not missing out on potential warranties that you may have on your equipment already. But beyond that is do research on the companies that you're bringing into your house. Read their Google reviews, read their website, make sure that they are who they say they are, that there's undeniable proof, because when that system has something go wrong with it, or if there's something you're not quite satisfied with, you want to make sure that they're going to be in business long enough to service your system. And matter of fact, you want to make sure that the company that you do business with is in business and has been in business long enough that you could trust that they're going to be there for the next system even. So that's who you want to make sure you're choosing when it comes to replacing your home's most expensive appliance, because you're not going to call Lennox when your compressor dies, or you're not going to call Goodman when your system goes down. You're going to call Yarbrough & Sons. You're going to call a local company that you like, know, and trust. So choosing a company that you like, know, and trust matters a whole lot more than the brand that they sell. And like we talked about with the price, sometimes you get what you pay for. And with HVAC installs, 80% of the life of the air conditioner being contingent on the day of the install matters a whole heck of a lot to you and the longevity of comfort in your home. We have this stigma that financing is a bad word. And the car industry has been financing cars for a long time because this is a big expense. And not everybody has $30,000, $40,000 laying around to go buy a new car. And I get it, same boat. I don't have that money laying around to go buy a new car either. Why then do we take the same attitude when it comes to financing your air conditioner? Because it's 2026, the economy's doing what the economy does. A new air conditioner is expensive. And not only is it expensive, but it's a big decision to make. And so choosing the right company matters. And therefore, sometimes if you're paying $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 for that change out, well, now we can finance that system. So like here at Yarbrough & Sons, we have 0% offers happening all the time, meaning that we could make a new system cost as low as like $180 in financing per month for 6 years. So for 6 years, you've got 0%. So financing your system is a way to make sure that one, we're doing business with a credible company, because your HVAC company should have a relationship with a credit union, a bank of some sort who's capable of offering you a financing deal. And if they don't, run far, run fast, and get away, because they probably don't have the creds to even get the financing line of credit open for them to do business with. That right there is one of the first ways that I would check and see if a company is legit. Do they have a financing tab on their website, and who are the banks that they're doing business with? Those two things right there answer a whole lot lot of questions for me as a consumer, because I know if you don't have any financing leaks and you don't have an established relationship, well, I probably can't trust you to be in business longer than a few more months or a few more years maybe. Probably not the life of my warranty. So financing your system isn't a bad deal because of that warranty. So new equipment comes with a 10-year parts warranty. And if you buy it from us, it comes with a 10-year labor warranty as well. So now we finance this system for 6 years. We're not paying on it for 4 years, and we don't have to worry about any repairs for that entire 10-year period. So now what we've done is we've basically just given a worry-free system for the next 10 years that's going to cost $180 a month. And that is a huge blessing and a huge peace of mind for you, the homeowner, who thinks, okay, well, maybe I can't do this all in one lump sum, but I can pay the $180 a month or whatever it is, and I don't have to worry about it because I got a labor warranty. So I'd make sure that the company that you're doing business with offers a labor warranty at minimum. So we've talked about the external pressures, the government. We've talked about the internal pressures of the labor. We've talked about the scammers. We've talked about how to avoid getting scammed. Now I want to talk about what it looks like if you don't make the decision to replace your system this year. It's going to be cheaper to replace now than it will be in 2027. When we revisit this video in 2027, the average tickets are going to be up probably somewhere around 5 to 8% because that's what the cost is happening to us on the input side of things. It's about 5 to 10% swing on input costs for replacing your home's most expensive appliance, your HVAC system. So if you're on the fence, if you're thinking, you know what, I need to replace this system, I made it out of last summer by the skin of my teeth, I'm not sure if I'm gonna make it through another summer, or if you've had a catastrophic breakdown so far this spring, now is the time to replace your system. I don't care if you're watching this in 2027, it's gonna be cheaper then to replace it in the next year. And that is an always moving can that we are seeing go down the road. It's not getting cheaper to do this because the labor, because the equipment, the materials, all of those external pressures that we talked about. So if you need to know what it costs to replace your home's most expensive appliance, you can scan the QR code up here, or you can click the link down in the description and you can get an instant estimate in less than a couple of minutes and see what it would cost to replace your home's most expensive appliances. Guys, I hope this has helped. I hope this has given you some clarity on how you can avoid being taken advantage of and why equipment costs have seemingly skyrocketed over the last 4 years. But other than that, that's all I got. Do something nice for somebody. You never know, it might change their life. Eyes up, feet moving. Here we go.
Yarborough.